Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka Mono Bluetron, back again with another episode of 10-Minute Testing. Today we're looking at a new set of cards that are, as most recently released archetypes have been, extremely xenophobic. I don't know why this is, but it seems like since every archetype is implicitly competing with link climbing, they all have these ridiculous clauses that prevent it. Personally, I would have just made the link monsters specific and then not printed summoning restrictions on all the main deck monsters, but I digress. By using today's usually single-minded archetype for something other than what it was intended for, we're going to assemble a consistent deck with an extreme amount of power behind it, presenting Orphegel Topologic Turbo. So here's the list, and hoo boy, there's a lot going on here. As always, I'll give you a little bit of background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and as always, the card by card. So firstly, for those of you that don't know, Orphegel is a new series of monsters whose names are a portmanteau of Orpheus and Orgel, which means music box in some languages. They all resemble musical instruments in some way, and lore-wise are another link in the evolutionary cycle of the World Legacy dinguses. Each one of their main deck monsters has the ability, when in graveyard, to banish itself in order to either special summon an Orphegel from deck, graveyard, or hand, and their associated link monsters both protect themselves when linked and can activate searching and destruction effects by shuffling banished Orphegel back into the deck. They're a remarkably easy group of monsters to link climb with, which would usually be concerning, except for one specific stipulation. You're not able to summon any monsters but dark ones the turn you use any of their effects. But don't worry, the dream of setting up a non-archetypal boss is not dead. There's one worthwhile monster that completes the format dream of the Orphegels, Revolver's ace, Topologic Bomber Dragon. Now, I hear what you're saying. Mono, you've been playing too much Trickstar, it's gone to your head. There's no way a spell speed 1 Raigeki on legs with 0 protection is good enough, but worry not, hypothetical hater, because I have news for you. Orphegel Galeta searches any Orphegel spell or trap from your deck, and while their field spell, Orphegel Babel, is on your side of the field, you can activate your Orphegel grave effects on either player's turn. Basically, if we link climb to Topologic Bomber Dragon, which the deck does with about 100% efficiency, we can use Topologic Bomber Dragon's non-OPT effect to wipe our opponent's board at least twice. To enable this strategy, we're on every powerful Dark-type Graveyard Enabler, Armageddonite, Dark Grepher, and Friends, as well as a medium-sized World Legacy Survivor package, since we incidentally want to be playing World Legacy Scepter and desperately need a Needlebug Nest effect we can activate turn 1. So with that, let's get into the card by card. First, our Orphegels. 3 copies of Orphegel Diver, who specials from deck, 3 copies of Orphegel The Share Zone, who specials from graveyard, and 3 copies of Orphegel Cannon, who specials from hand. Next are our World Legacies, 3 copies of World Scepter, who can special banished Orphegels, and 3 Crown, who facilitates link climbs since only one of the link materials has to be an Orphegel. Finally, 2 Dark Grepher to discard Scepter, and 3 Knight. After that are our spells. 3 copies of Orphegel Prime, which bins an Orphegel from our hand or field to draw 2 cards, 2 Babel to help your Orphegels trigger God of Destruction Topo, 1 Orphegel Einstats as an interesting target for Galeta should you draw Babel or Metaverse, 3 Allure, and our Survivor package. 3 Survivors and 3 Inheritor, that gives us 12 total targets. Finally, a 1 of Burial and a 1 of 1 for 1, and 3 Metaverse. Babel floats, but the only way we can immediately activate it again should it leave the field is by using Metaverse, and let me reiterate, we really need it. For the extra, we've got the False Boss, Orchestron, who can return 3 banished Orphegels to change a link monster's attack to 0 and negate its effects, 2 Orphegel Longrius, who can return 2 banished Orphegels to send a link monster your opponent controls to the graveyard, 2 Galeta, who can return 1 banished Orphegel to search a spell or trap, then 2 Topologic Bomber Dragon, Borreload, Boral Sword, Trisbania, who we actually make quite often, Nightmare's Griffin, Unicorn, Phoenix, and Cerberus, and Linkaribo to get that pesky cannon into the graveyard. So with that, let's jump into the games. Our first match is up against Code Talkers, a deck that has a ticking time bomb attached to it. At the very least, this deck is thematic since we're playing Topologic Bomber Dragon. There's always someone looking to roleplay Playmaker on YGO Pro Ladder. We're going to start by activating this copy of World Legacy Survivor. Thankfully, we do find a copy of World Legacy Crown, so we can bin the 2 Orphegels that we find. We'll then activate the effect of Share Zone to get this copy of Cannon to our side of the field. Normal summon a copy of Armageddonite to send a Diver, then go into Galeta. Galeta is going to return Share Zone so we can get our own copy of Babel. We'll then special summon a copy of World Crown, go into Longreus, activate Allure of Darkness, banish a card, then use the effect of Driver to get Driver and end our turn. Our opponent's going to draw, and what do they find but a copy of Lady Debugger. They will use that effect along with the Boot Stagger that they ripped for their turn. They'll then activate this copy of Cynet Optimized to normal summon this Draconet and get a Beatron, and that is prime time to activate the effect of Topologic Bomber. We'll wipe their board and they'll pass it back to us. Thankfully, we should be able to win from this position. We're going to activate Allure of Darkness, and with Classic, we'll then activate the effect of Share Zone to get Longreus, but of course it can't be destroyed by card effects while it's linked. We're going to pass it back to our opponent, and what do they draw but, oh god, the out. They're going to start by special summoning Denigrade Buster, then twin twistering our board. We're going to force the activation of Denigrade Buster, and they do activate it. We have a Share Zone on our side of the field, but that doesn't do a whole lot, so they'll walk over it. Then in end phase, we'll get our copy of Topo back. We're going to go ahead and activate the Grave Effect of Babel, and they will Denigrade Buster, not giving us any time to do anything. We will activate the Grave Effect of Scepter as well, since it's in the graveyard. We'll crash into the Denigrade Buster, do 1700 directly, then use Share Zone's effect to bring back Longreus. At end step, of course, we're also going to get back Topologic Bomber Dragon. Our opponent's going to draw and immediately concede. While the last game did a good job of showcasing the explosivity of this deck, this game does a good job of showcasing its repeatability. Our opponent is on Pendulum Magician Draco Pals, which is a lot of words to just say an Electromite deck. We get to go first once again, which is excellent. We're going to start by activating this copy of World Legacy Survivors, and we find... hopefully... World Legacy Crown. So we get to send a lot of cards to the graveyard. It normal summons Armageddon Knight to send a Cannon. We'll use it to get the Diver out of the hand, go into Galeta, then we'll shuffle back this copy of Cannon to get ourselves a copy of Babel, which we'll flip up. We'll use the Grave Effect of Diver to get a Share Zone, go into Longreus, then use Share Zone to recur Galeta and go into Topologic Bomber. We hard drew Einstat, so we'll set that and pass it back. Our opponent's going to start by activating the Pendulum Effect of Curtain Raiser, then normal summoning a Rescue Rabbit. Einstats will trigger, sending a copy of Diver, then we'll go ahead and use the Grave Effect of Share Zone to trigger the effect of Topologic Bomber Dragon. Our opponent's going to Draco face off into a Luster Pendulum, destroying a purple poison to destroy our Topologic, then Pendulum summon 3 monsters, including, a fresh Rescue Rabbit. They'll go into an Electromite, send a copy of Zero, then destroy this second copy of purple poison to destroy our remaining monster. We'll shuffle a couple copies of Orphegels back into our deck so we still have stuff to use. Then they'll use the effect of Rescue Rabbit to go into a rank 4 and get themselves a copy of Dragonic Diagram. This Magister Pendulum is going to activate. They'll attack for 1950, 1800, and 1850. Then in main phase 2, they'll destroy this copy of Master Pendulum so they can get a copy of Forge and pass it back to us. Unfortunately, they know they are dead. If we can assemble any link material, we'll go ahead and do that by using the Grave Effect of Babel and then the Grave Effect of World Scepter to get a Share Zone and use Diver. A bit of an early concession, but entirely understandable. I wouldn't want to sit through that combo twice. Alright, it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent is playing Altergeist, and that's really going to push this deck to its limits. Are we able to deal with multiple pieces of interaction a turn? Unfortunately for game 1, the answer is likely no. We have lost the die roll. Our opponent's going to start by normal summoning a copy of Melusik, then going into a Link Karibo. That's going to trigger Melusik for a Kunkieti, setting 3 and passing. When we have a pretty good opener, we're going to special summon a Dark Greffer, then use its effect to send a Diver to graveyard. Share Zone is there too, so we'll go into a Galeta, and there's Lost Wind. Well, we can still make something happen, especially through the Silquidius. We're going to use the Grave Effect of World Scepter to bring back Share Zone, and here's Galeta number 2. That's going to prompt the Silquidius, returning it to the extra deck, but we can still maybe make something happen with our normal summon. We'll send another copy of Scepter because we have Armageddon Knight. We'll bring back a Share Zone and go into Galeta number 3, getting ourselves a Babel, finally, and oh my god, there's Heavy Dust Storm. Well, I guess we can attack over, well, okay. We'll set a copy of Metaverse and pass it back to our opponent. Things aren't looking particularly good. They're going to activate Altergeist Materialization. I figure, well, they're going to get a copy of Multifaker out of their hand anyway. We might as well activate our trap now. We'll chain this copy of Share Zone to get a copy of Galeta, and oh boy, as soon as we try to activate her effect, there's the Lost Wind that was set prior. That's really all we can do, and will, in fact, be the end of the game. So it's time for game 2, which should go better than game 1, if only by virtue of the fact that we are going first. Unfortunately, this hand is not particularly good. The presence of Orphegel Einstats is not welcome, and the low monster count means that this is likely the first hand that we've drawn that folds to a single hand trap. Our opponent has also drawn a single hand trap, so pray for me. We're going to start by normal summoning this copy of Dark Greffer, a sentence I don't like using. Then we're going to use its effect to send this copy of Diver to graveyard by ditching Cannon. It's going to get Ash Blossom when we attempt to use its effect, so we'll set an Einstat, set a Metaverse, and hope for the best. Our opponent's going to start by normal summoning a Melusik that triggers Einstat, sending a Diver to graveyard. They will attack directly, triggering its effect, sending this Greffer to graveyard, then go into Link Karibo, getting a Multifaker, setting 4, and passing it back to us. We'll activate Metaverse at end step and Diver to get ourselves a Share Zone and draw. What do we find but a Cannon? We'll start by activating Orphegel Prime, and here's a Dust Storm. That's unfortunate. unfortunate and a sick 2-for-1. They're then going to activate Personnel Spoofing and this copy of Altergeist Protocol alongside Multifaker, which gets them a Silk. We can maybe play through this. We're going to use Share Zone's effect to get ourselves a copy of Cannon. It gets negated by Protocol. Then afterwards, we're going to use a second Cannon to get ourselves Solemn Warninged. We can still keep going, so we'll normal summon a Diver and trigger the effect of this Link Haribo if nothing else, then pass it back. Our opponent draws into an Imperial Order, which is sort of a brick. They'll then use Altergeist Silquidius to return this copy of Altergeist Manifestation to hand, then spoofing it away for a Marionette, or just anything but spoofing, and we might be in this game. They'll get themselves a Manifestation and attack in for 1600. We draw, and it's a Babel. That's okay if they didn't have a copy of Imperial Order. They're going to activate this Altergeist Protocol ASAP to get this Multifaker out of their hand and a Silquidius on board. They're going to activate Materialization to get a Meluseek from Graveyard. When we send the Scepter to Graveyard to use Babel's effect, we'll then use the effect of Scepter, which gets negated by Protocol, and now we have to try our hardest once again. They go into a Conchieri, we're going to go into a Link Haribo off this Cannon, then start the climb finally into Galeta, then Share Zone, then Unicorn because it is dark. That prompts the effect of Silquidius, but unfortunately we just lose from this position. We'll use Share Zone to bring back Galeta and attack for 1800, but there's the Conchieri, which is going to negate its effect, and we'll pass it back to our opponent now that they have everything and anything. We are firmly on the Imperial Order burns our opponent out plan, but that's going to be quickly denied by this Altergeist Marionetter. It's going to use its effect to bring back Multifaker, then Multifaker is going to bring back a Meluseek. They'll go into Hextia, trigger the effect of Meluseek to get a Conchieri, and pass it back to us. Oh boy, there's Anti-Spell Fragrance, there's Manifestation. I can't get over this Hextia, and there's a Conchieri just in case. I thought I could. They'll take another 700. We're firmly on the plan. We'll normal summon a Share Zone and start attacking. That's going to trigger another Conchieri and negate the effect of our Share Zone. They're going to Personnel Spoofing, and we'll concede. So we're back with the deck. I loved it. The fact that it was competitive against decks designed to interrupt monster effects as much as possible gives me hope, but there are still a few tips I'd recommend. 1. Keep in mind that this deck lives and dies by Topologic Bomber. There's a couple of ways to lose the game instantly: creature removal and cherries. In the board, I'd recommend some number of Called by the Grave. The draw engines like Prime are easy takeouts, as well as potential creature savers like My Body as a Shield, provided they are wisely boarding in individual monster destruction for Topo. 2. Do not forget Trisbania. I picked up a lot of games against decks like True Draco by, instead of making Bomber turn 1, making Trisbania and daring my opponent to set 4. You're going to lose your Orphs, but you can shuffle them back with the Link monsters or snag them to field with Scepter anyway. Trisbania is also great and cute in time. And 3. Patience. You're only going to get 2, maybe 3 maximum Torrential Tributes, and it's very easy to jump the gun against an extremely redundant deck. Only wipe when you absolutely need it, which is a piece of advice that I hope you don't apply to anything else. All in all, it's a cool linear deck with potentially enough power to be rogue competitive, and I can't wait to play with it more. So that's that. I hope this episode comes out okay. It's the first one on my new computer. I am very happy to not have to edit out my laptop's death throes. If you want to see me play the decks I make on this show on stream, I'm on twitch.tv/monobluetron every weekend, and if you have an idea for a deck or archetype you want me to take a look at, let me know in the comments section below, and I'll do my best. Otherwise, I'll see you Monday.